Morning. Welcome to GFP. This morning, we're going to be talking about building school culture. I have my good friend Melissa Martin on the line with us. She has been appointed to so many different initiatives at the governor here in Texas. And if anybody knows anything about building school culture, it's definitely her because she has been in the trenches as an educator. She's a PhD student. Not just that, she has helped launch a new organization called Innovative Teachers. And so, but as a leader in Texas, I'd like to introduce to you Melissa Martin. Melissa Martin, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Melissa, you've done a lot of cool things, and actually, one of the ways we met is that you were assigned to a committee that the governor of Texas had set up.
I served on the commission for Texas Public School Finance. It was a special commission a few years back, and it was quite an experience because I was the teacher that represented all the teachers here in the state of Texas, and I had to spend a lot of time that year with different state senators and representatives. It was quite an experience.
I thought it was interesting because you actually pulled me in on some of the things that you did, and I thought that was an amazing. I thought it was amazing because not only were you representing, but you were making sure that you were actually hearing the correct voice of the people, and I think that's very important. I really I look for you to be running for some type of office one day. Um, she says no, but Commissioner of Education sounds good to me. So I hope that you do. But today we're talking about building school culture, and then I want to talk about how an educator or principal can help build school culture in their schools. And then I want to talk about the initiative that you are working on right now with Innovative Teachers of Texas.
Okay. So you want to start with the school culture part?
Yeah, let's definitely. I want to dig in and I want to help some educators. Not just that. Today I'm reaching out to principals, people that lead schools, coaches, superintendents, people that work in the district. I really want to give them some pointers on what they can do to build a strong school culture. Take it away.
Okay. Well, I feel like there are several different things that can be done. It's a leadership position requires a lot of integrity and it requires good interpersonal skills where you get to know your teachers, where you can call them by name. I've actually worked on some campuses where the administrators didn't even know the names of the teachers. I'm blessed to be on a campus now where that's not the case. But I'm actually in my fourth district. I've taught for 23 years. And before that, I served in the Air Force. But what I have learned about leadership is, I have a lot easier time having a good attitude when I have administrators that are honest. And it's really important to be transparent with your teachers. And another thing is, they're the ones that make the decisions when it comes to discipline with our students. Now, I realize a lot of times their hands are tied, and so they end up having to follow a lot of things that come from the legislature or from TEA. So I understand that they have certain guidelines they have to follow. However, sometimes when like restorative discipline, I'm not a fan. I know that there are still people that think that is an ideal situation. Maybe in an ideal world where you can assume that students have a conscience that you can appeal to, but we have an awful lot of students right now that are struggling with their own personal character and integrity. And so when you have students that are being sent to the office for various reasons, and then they just come right back after cussing a teacher out, or being disrespectful, to their classmates, being disruptive, sometimes being violent, or destructive of school property. It doesn't seem like the consequences are always fitting whatever the the issue is. And we don't always get communication from administrators about why. Why did they not get removed from the classroom for ISS? Why did they get sent right back to class? And so, one of the things that has frustrated me over the 23 years of education is that students will have different issues, and we understand that we have to have confidentiality and there's a right to privacy. But as the teachers in the classroom, we're the ones that are spending the greatest amount of time with our students. And if there are certain issues that are going on with students, it would really help us as the teachers if we had a better understanding of what some of our students are going through. And sometimes the counselors know, sometimes the administrators know, but they don't share with us. Now, sometimes they will, but it's kind of, honestly, it's kind of rare that they share with us the things that are going on, and it would help us to approach the students a little differently. But it's we really need to have more communication when they're creating different schedules, when they're disciplining students. It really would benefit the teacher administrator relationship and the attitudes of teachers if we had better communication about these are the decisions that we're making, and we want you to understand why. When I worked on my master's, I remember learning an awful lot about some of the the reasons that administrators were making some of the decisions that they were making. I've never wanted to be a principal. I just, when I knew I needed to get my master's, I thought, well, I'll go ahead and go for education administration because it just made sense. But I learned a lot in that process. But not all of our teachers are getting educated about, the kind of expectations that and the responsibilities that administrators have. And I feel like it's important to communicate with teachers so that they understand because, I feel like you're working with adults. It's not like a parent child relationship where it's like, this is what I said, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Because we know that even with students, with our own children, if we can explain things to them, then that helps. It helps them to accept the decisions more. And a lot of times we don't get those explanations. We just get, feedback that, oh, you you sent your student to the office because maybe they cussed you out. They're right back in the classroom, and we don't get an explanation about, okay, why is this the decision that was made?
I have heard that, and I do get it. Principals are under an extreme amount of stress.
Mhm.
By the way, Andrew Martin is on here. He's saying hi from Arkansas. He's a paraprofessional. And so, Andrew, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and Melissa will answer them. And I do think that maybe teachers should be able to see what the matrix looks like. I do know this, that when you have too many discipline referrals in the system and you're just racking up discipline referrals, the state's looking at that. And
Mhm.
if you have too many arrests that are coming from your school could be labeled a dangerous campus. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the students, and we have our governing body is at TEA. We have them looking at us. So not just are they looking at, okay, so why are they having this many referrals? They're looking at the color of the kids that is getting the referrals. They're looking at those different types of demographics. One year I was blessed to get it was like a half district, half teacher position because a school district they had excluded too many African American boys. And so
Mhm.
TEA came down on them. So this position, it was just a short position, but it was just a position to help intervene to see what is going on between this ratio of teachers or educators in these African American boys. And I can say firsthand that I have seen the disproportion. But what people aren't realizing that with that the disproportion, there also comes a different belief in a different buy-in from educate for education from the community. So that has a reflect on how a student responds to a teacher or how a student may respond. And I'm not saying African American boys don't respond well to teachers, because a lot of our young little princes, they do very well, but in certain climates, certain um, areas, they may have it may have been embedded in them a distrust for educators for whatever reason, or just like there's a distrust for police officers. And as you said, if we don't understand and teach educators these things, um, it sometimes it does cause a mistrust from the staff to the administration. And so usually once that referral is put in the process, the administrator, when they get time, upon all other referrals they have and all other duties, the classroom check-ins and paperwork and everything, they get to that referral, and then they have to process it. And there are aspects that are confidential, but there probably could be some more transparency in there. But the principals would need some more time. But some of them are already putting in 12-hour shifts, and um, so what would you suggest as far as how could that be more transparent to where the teacher's not feeling like they're not being heard?
Well, I feel like one of the things that would be beneficial is if teachers were made to feel comfortable being able to question. And, because I think a lot of times teachers don't feel like they can approach the assistant principal and question because of that authority. They feel like they can't come to them and say, okay, wait a minute, I just got cussed out. And, the we should not have to tolerate that kind of behavior in the classroom. One of the things that I do want to bring up too is I understand that campuses are being rated based on arrests, and I understand that they're being rated based on referrals. And we need to look at that system, because we don't need to be holding back on referrals, and we don't need to be holding back on arrests based on that. If a student right now, the way that things are set up, a student can commit a crime on campus, the exact same crime that they would commit off campus. And because they're on school property, they won't get arrested for it. However, if they were off school property, they will. And these policies are not helping discipline on school campuses. This is not helping. Not only is it not making it a safer place for school districts and school campuses, but it's not helping the student. I recently, without going into details, I recently had a student within the past couple of years, trying to be vague about this, and this student attacked another student and did get arrested for it. And when the student, after the arrest and after being sent to the alternative school for 30 days, the student came back, was in my classroom, and was a very different student, behaved very differently. And when I asked the student, what is it that's made the change for you? The answer I got was, I don't want to be arrested again, because that was not a good experience. And that even solidified my opinion that it's better. We all hate for students to have some kind of record. We all hate, it doesn't matter what color or gender they are. We don't want any students to start off young having a record, but it's sure a whole lot better for them to have that kind of lesson, learn from it, be held accountable so that they will learn from it, and then have an opportunity to truly, become the kind of citizen that we need to be creating in schools. We don't need to create these. I have another student that is destructive, okay, punching holes in walls, and has not had to face any, if he or she did that same thing off campus, they would get in trouble. They would get a ticket for destruction of property. That student can't go around, other places punching holes in walls, but yet, there's absolutely there's very little that gets done. And when you ask the student, okay, why would you do that on campus, but you don't do that off campus? The answer is, well, I know if I did it, off campus, I could get arrested. I could get ticketed for it. They know. And recently there's a community member here in the Houston area that it's really interesting because he did this live stream, and I've seen him speak at the HISD board meetings. He's quite a character. I don't know that his title is one that he's adopted, but I've heard him referred to as the general. You might be familiar with who this person is. And he made a lot of really good points in a live video that he had put out just a couple of months ago. And he was talking about how, everybody wants to blame the parents for the way these kids are showing up and behaving. And I agree that to an extent, parents, we need to hold, parents need to be taking care of training their kids up to behave right.
Right.
But and completely, parents are the ones that are ultimately responsible for that. However, the policies that we have adopted for the state and for campuses, it's not fostered the kind of responsible behavior that we need in students. And when this man was talking, he said, you've got to quit just blaming parents, because an awful lot of the behaviors that these kids come to school and they're exhibiting these behaviors, they wouldn't get away with this at home. Their parents would not tolerate this at home. And, I actually think he's right in a lot of instances, but they come to school and, they don't get the same consequences that, and they feel the need, they're still searching for their identity. They're still, they care an awful lot about what their peers think. They're trying to figure out their pecking order among their peers. And so they'll sometimes show up at school and, for act a fool. They'll show up and act in, a way that their mamas would not allow them to behave that way at home. And so I think that this man made a really good point when he was saying that. And as teachers, there's things that we don't want to allow these things to happen in our classrooms. But if we don't have the backing of administrators, and sometimes it's the parents, sometimes it's the administrators, but we don't always feel like we have the authority to hold kids to a high standard, because when we do, we either don't have the backing of the parents, or sometimes there's no consequences from the administrators. And, kids can come in and sometimes tear up a whole classroom. Now, that doesn't typically, I teach secondary, so I'm a high school teacher. That doesn't typically happen at the high school level. It's in the younger grades. But these teachers are being expected to just tolerate this. And we know that they spend an awful lot of their own money to try to make their classrooms nice. But even if the district provides all of that, teachers are supposed to be good stewards of what we've been given in the classroom. And we shouldn't have to take the time and effort to, get a classroom, built in a way that is a good environment for students. And then they're allowed to just come in and tear a classroom up. And so these are things that really hurt school culture, because it messes with teacher morale. And I mean, that's just one of the things that I'm not really having to experience that where I am now. I feel very, very blessed, because we have, I'm in a community where the demographics are mostly minority, but we have a lot of parent support. We have a lot of administrator support. And so our kids, for the most part, really behave well. Is it perfect? No. It could improve. And I think a lot of that, like you talked about, it's because of the way that the state, looks at things. And so we need to look at how that's being handled at the state level. And then we need to really push restorative discipline right back out the door, because while building relationships is important, just the concept of restorative discipline, it's a failed experiment. It's not working. And I think some of it's because it's not being implemented properly. But it's just, it's run by humans. So we need to have a system that actually is going to function, and kind of like look back to how things used to be. Kids used to get
You
held accountable.
mentioned building relationships. We know for sure, using different PBIS, positive behavior initiative supports, is a way of building relationships with the students. But also, we forget that link, that home, that home link. Because if we build relationships with those parents, a lot of times we have them on board with us.
Right.
Unfortunately, parents are super busy now. You have, a high rate of single parents. I think 10 years ago it was 1 in 4, and those numbers may have even changed now. Um, but it's very difficult when the parents are taking care of real life stuff. And so I agree. I do not blame parents, but we do have to go back to the basics sometimes, unfortunately, because of the deficits that may be at home, because the parents are trying to survive. And when you're in survival mode, you know, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to say it that way, but when you're in survival mode, some of the basic, um, I don't know, procedures, they kind of go out the window. And
Mhm.
so, um, how do you link parents back in the loop and get buy-in for the schools? Because if we got parents, then we have the students.
Well, I think part of it is helping to truly create that partnership again, especially since COVID. There's an awful lot of schools that have locked parents out. They're not allowed to come in, and have lunch with their kids anymore. They're not invited to come in and, help volunteer. Sometimes they're not welcome on field trips. There's an awful lot of ways that we have really messed up by not fostering that relationship. And then we know that, things that have happened with the National Association of School Boards when they were trying to call parents domestic terrorists because, they had
They wanted to
opinions.
get involved.
Yeah, they wanted to have a voice where, they don't want their kids learning about the gender ideology. They don't want their kids learning about CRT. And because they disagreed with some of the things that were being taught in schools, then, they were pretty much being silenced, even arrested at school boards because so we have to get back to building the bridge and helping to restore the trust and respect going both ways. We don't need to demonize all the parents, because we need our parents. We
We
need them
do.
to be on board, and we don't need to demonize teachers. And so that's one of the things that I've been really really proud of with the organization, Innovative Teachers of Texas, because we are reaching across and we're trying to build bridges with parents, and we're trying to help understand that, look, as teachers, I'm not the mama. Okay. I'm the teacher. And, I'm doing the best that I can with trying to instill, the content, but also just being a good role model and helping kids to develop character just through being a good role model and setting a good example. But I need parents, to partner with me so that if there are issues or questions, then we all need to feel comfortable being able to communicate with each other back and forth. And so the things that have been done over the past couple of years, it's really been very destructive for that parent teacher relationship. It's created a lot of distrust, and we need to knock it off with that. We need to pull those parents back in. And we
Yeah.
need to also help parents understand that, look, not only are we not responsible, but you are. You need to be getting that cell phone out of your kids' hands,
Yeah.
before 1 a.m. so that they will actually, be asleep, be in bed at a decent time so that
And
they
not
can.
be afraid to tell, and not be afraid to tell the parents, because and at some point the parents actually want the truth. they
Right.
that now the truth can be shocking, but they want to know the truth because these they're sending us the very best they have. And
It's
so
so
we have about, instead of doing a 15-minute segment, we've just done a whole show, Melissa.
oh,
So we have about 2 more minutes. Tell us about Innovative Teachers of Texas.
okay. Well, so our organization started 3.5 years ago. It started right before COVID. And the reason we started was because there were three of us that were very opposed to what the teacher unions were standing for. We weren't interested in supporting political candidates, especially those on the left. We don't give to any political candidate. We also felt very convicted about any dues going toward Planned Parenthood. And so that goes against our values and the values of a lot of other teachers. So we wanted teachers to have a safe place where they, if they have traditional values, they could come to us, get their professional liability insurance. We've also established good relationships with people in Austin. With we have relationships with both people in the House of Representatives as well as the Senate, and of course, with the governor's office, and with TEA. So we've been developing relationships with people here in the state of Texas so that we can help guide policy. We've been invited to have a voice with the Teacher Bill of Rights. So we're helping to construct the language with that. And I'm real excited that our organization is getting a voice with that because as you can see, I don't mind speaking up for teachers
No,
because,
not at all. What is the Teacher Bill of Rights? I've never heard that before.
well, it's something that's just now being constructed, and so it should be, it's in the beginning phases. So this next legislative session, it'll be introduced, and it's something that some conservatives had pushed back on because they felt like teachers already, are too protected. I disagree because
Yeah.
as teachers, we need to be able to say that, look, nope, I don't want to teach, CRT. I don't want to teach gender ideology. I need to be able to stand on traditional values.
And
And
teach
so
math.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And we need to focus on literacy for our students. And we also don't need to be expected, like one of our members recently, in a school district had an issue. She was expected to write her lesson plans, which is necessary, right? I mean, planning is an important part, but she was expected to post it in two different places online, plus print it out and put it outside the door. That was a district policy. And I was like, why? I mean, why are they creating so much extra work for teachers? This is not the time to be doing that because we have all these teachers fleeing, and we need to be respectful of teachers' time. We need to give them the tools that they need so that they can teach, and we need to help to elevate the profession so that we can attract quality people into our profession. We don't need to be disrespecting the profession and causing just anybody and everybody to want to come in. We need to have quality people who have a heart for teaching kids.
Okay, Melissa, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I will talk to you soon, and drop comments in the chat. Tell us what you thought about the show and if you have ideas for other ones. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.